for whatever reason, the Lions are in the crosshairs of the NFL, whether it's Terry and Arnold consistently getting pass interference calls, holding calls, whatever it is for the first, 4 weeks of the season. And then Carlton Davis in the last game versus the Seahawks had, 3 fouls himself or penalties that maybe shouldn't have been penalties. And I would tend to agree with the masses that this is ticky-tacky stuff that is going on here. And again, for whatever reason, the Lions just seem to be in the crosshairs of the NFL after the game with fines. And some of these fines just don't make sense. So I'm going to show you some tape. And we're going to talk about each and every single one of these because there's one that, in my opinion, should have gotten the biggest fine of all that didn't. And that was the Derek Barnes injury, the hit by Trey McBride. So on the second possession for the Arizona Cardinals, Derek Barnes took a low chop block by Trey McBride to the knee. Now, obviously, Derek Barnes stayed on the ground. I mean, the knee is vicious. The hit on the knee was vicious. So I'm going to warn you that the tape that you're going to see is pretty jarring. It's pretty bad. Now, he was eventually carted off the field, Derek Barnes, with a towel over his head. I mean, he knew what was coming. And then, of course, this week, Dan Campbell even reiterated the fact that if the Lions were to get Derek Barnes back at all, they would be very fortunate. So it's highly unlikely that Derek Barnes will be coming back this season. And the Lions are going to be looking to address that, which they started to by filling out the depth chart in the practice squad, bringing in Cam Gill and El Kouaden Muhammad. Now, speaking here of Derek Barnes, so he was starting next to Jack Campbell and kind of filling in for Alex Anzalone, who was out from the previous game from a concussion that he had suffered. Now, Barnes is a key piece to the Lions defense. He started to emerge last season, playing fairly well this season, very versatile in the run game, right? He's been kind of a run stuffer to a degree, lacking in coverage, but much better against the run. So after halftime of this game, the Lions announced that Derek Barnes was out for the remainder of the game with a knee injury. So let's bring that video in right now. Oh, there's Derek Barnes right here on your left. And what you are about to see is Derek Barnes starts to crash in, right? Holds containment, and then Trey McBride goes into motion and then comes back and takes out Derek Barnes. Here we go. So Trey McBride is in motion. Now watch where Trey McBride ends up hitting Derek Barnes. Oof. I mean, it does not get any more egregious than this. That is clearly well below the thigh, just below the knee, and Derek Barnes is now done for the season. And an injury that is probably going to hamper him for quite a while. This is going to be a very difficult rehab for Derek Barnes. And, when he finally gets on his way back, hopefully he'll be the same player that he was. Let me look at one more angle here. Again, Trey McBride goes in motion. This is full speed here. I mean, just absolutely sickens me to my core that Trey McBride was not fined for that hit. I mean, are you kidding me right now, NFL? Like, that is the most egregious penalty on a crack, back block, chop block, whatever you want to call it. But that's the most egregious penalty that should have been fined. Not only was there not a flag, but there was no fine. In a lot of these, fines that we're talking about today, there wasn't flags on every single one of these plays. So the NFL is intentionally going back and reviewing, these plays and then, levying fines against Detroit Lions players. But they didn't against Trey McBride. I don't understand it. And Trey McBride was involved in a couple of instances in this game, most notably against Brian Branch. So again, I'm going to tell you that the video is not fun to watch because, it's pretty gruesome, but I think it needs to be watched. We need to go over this stuff. We need to see what the real issues are that Lions players are facing for whatever reason, again, by the NFL. So Detroit Lions defensive back Brian Branch was forced to leave this game. late into the fourth quarter. It was about 6 minutes or so left in the game. So if you want to go back and watch it yourself, it's about the 6-minute mark of the fourth quarter. Now, very scary collision between him and McBride. Left Brian Branch motionless on the turf. And Trey McBride did go out later with concussion protocol. So the Lions thought that Brian Branch suffered a neck injury on this play, ended up being concussion. So Branch was hurt while making the tackle on the Cardinals tight end Trey McBride in the fourth quarter. And look, they're going to say that they were colliding and Brian Branch led with his head. I didn't see that from the tape. I saw Brian Branch leading with his shoulder. But I want you to tell me what you think, because I think that Brian Branch was getting into position, leading with his shoulder, turns his head to the side, and to me it looks like Trey McBride then lowers his helmet to find Brian Branch's helmet, or the side of his helmet. In my opinion, could he have allegedly intentionally tried to injure Brian Branch? Because Brian was having a hell of a game. Now, Brian eventually walked off the field. He had a little bit of help from the medical staff, but he was done for the day. And, others have questioned whether McBride should have been flagged for targeting on this play, as it appeared that, he lowered his helmet to initiate the contact, which is what I believe. And apparently there's some misunderstanding here, which maybe I'm not real clear on, that targeting could only be a defensive penalty. I don't understand that. I would think that it could go both ways. Why wouldn't you be able to target, a player on offense? I get it is mostly a defensive penalty. It always has been. But why couldn't, they give that kind of a penalty to an offensive player in this, sort of a situation? So, like I said, Brian Branch was having a very good game up until this point, and let's watch it now. So Brian Branch is back here. Now he's going to come up. McBride makes the catch. Bang. So again, I want to preface this by, what is Brian Branch doing, just before the point of contact here? So you can see that Brian has got his body turned to the right. He is leading with his back and his shoulder. That's what I see. I don't see Brian Branch leading with the crown of his helmet. I see him turning to the right and trying to lead with the back of his shoulder there. That's exactly what you see right here. Let me see if I can get us a better angle here. Let's take a look at the end zone angle. Again, I see Brian Branch turning and trying to hit with his shoulder and the back of his shoulder blade there. I do not see him trying to lead with the crown of his helmet. Turns to the right, helmet goes down, shoulders up. Trey McBride is the one that makes the contact with the helmet, not Brian Branch. Here's what I don't understand. Why didn't Trey McBride just kind of dive over top of Branch? Why did he have to make contact? It's not like this was a bang-bang play. Like, Trey McBride had some time to figure out what he wanted to do. Matter of fact, he probably could have gained some more yardage by just going to the right or to the left of Brian. But for whatever reason, they decided to make contact together, or at least Trey decided to make contact. And again, I will say this. I believe that this should have been a fine against Trey McBride and not just Brian Branch here. Or you just don't fine anybody and you just say, hey, it's just part of the game. It happens. Either way, I still feel that Trey McBride was intentionally trying to lead with his helmet. So next up, let's look at the second fine Brian Branch gets in this game, which supposedly, let me make sure I read this. It's fined $10,128 for unnecessary roughness for striking, kicking, or kneeing an opponent. Now, the opponent appeared to be Tip Riemann, and this was on a field goal attempt by Matt Prater. The penalty before that, where Brian Branch was fined. Excuse me here. Where did I put that? Where Brian Branch was fined, he was also fined Well, he was fined $20,256 in total on the day. So I guess you'd have to do the math there. What's 20,256? Looks like it's directly in half. So he was fined $10,128 for each occurrence on the day. All right, so let's take a look at the Brian Branch penalty now for allegedly kneeing an opponent or kicking an opponent. And again, this one doesn't seem to make a whole lot of sense to me. Let's just see what it shows here. So Brian Branch is going to be down on the right side of your screen, right? He's the second guy in from the end. Now, what I see Brian Branch trying to knife right between these two offensive linemen here. Tries to squeeze through, and they're calling that a knee or a kick. Who did he kick? Who did he knee? His knee never made contact with anybody, and if it did, it was on the side of Tip Riemann. He didn't knee anyone. He didn't kick anyone. He's just trying to get through the line. I mean, isn't this just crazy? This is just a normal play in football. Now, there's a little bit, after the fact here by Riemann. And Brian Branch gave him a little bit of a love tap on his face mask. Now, you could have called something for that. But again, Brian Branch is like, what are you doing, dude? Like, why are you pushing me, man? Like, why so serious? What's going on here? So again, I'm going to question the NFL. What are you doing? Like, what's going on here? I just don't understand it. So next up, let's talk about the next fine of the day in this game. So Brian Branch is fined twice. Let's take a look at Kirby Joseph. He was fined on a Marvin Harrison Jr. Play here. So the NFL docks safety Kirby Joseph $7,505 on this play for unnecessary roughness on a hit for a defenseless player when he hit Marvin Harrison Jr. after cornerback Terrion Arnold was bringing down the receiver in the fourth quarter. That is what the NFL states as their reasoning. And I'm just going to tell you right now, here's another one that just doesn't make any sense. 0 cents. Let me bring it in for y'all. All right, here we go. So you have Kirby up here at the top of your screen. Terrion running down the right side with Marvin Harrison. The ball's out. Ball's caught. How is this a hit on a defenseless receiver? Once you start to establish yourself as a runner, which is right now, he's a runner. And yes, he was started to go to the ground. But once you establish yourself as a runner in open field, you are no longer a defenseless receiver. And again, Kirby lowered his shoulder, did not lead with his helmet. Lowers his shoulder. It's the same type of way that Brian Branch tried to make the tackle on Trey McBride. Led with the back of his shoulder, turns his head away. And Marvin Harrison Jr. kind of turned in front of him. I don't understand it. I don't understand how this is a penalty in the NFL. What happened to playing football? Let's see if we can see something from the end zone look here. Yeah, this just looks exceptionally weak here. All right, he's caught the ball. They are, 4 or 5 yards separated from each other. Terrion's in good position to make the tackle. I mean, if anything, Kirby is the reason why Marvin Harrison goes down. Well, what had happened if, Terrion's arm slipped off of Marvin Harrison and he's gone? If Kirby doesn't make that contact, Marvin Harrison Jr. is gone. If for some reason, he was able to get his feet back underneath him and continue traveling towards the end zone there. So again, I just see a very weak penalty. What I see is the NFL has the Detroit Lions in their crosshairs for whatever reason. So Trey McBride lowered his helmet, in my opinion, caused the concussion or the neck injury to Brian Branch. He should have been flagged for lowering his helmet. Prior to that or after that, whatever the case was, I can't remember exactly where the injury happened to Derek Barnes, but that should have been a chop block, another illegal block by Trey McBride. That should have been fined. So if anything, Trey McBride should have had at least one on Derek Barnes, maybe 2 penalties. But I probably wouldn't have. I probably wouldn't have fined either Branch or Trey McBride on that play. I would have fined Trey McBride for the play on Derek Barnes. Lastly, let's take a look at Jalen Reeves-Maybin. He was also fined in this game. And this one I tend to agree with, okay? This one I think is clear as day. Jalen Reeves-Maybin, maybe a little overzealous on this play. Definitely wasn't needed. Play happens in the middle. It's done. Jalen comes in at the very end. Flag comes out, as you can see. Flag's out right away. And it should have been. Like, Jalen had no business piling on here. Play was done. There's no reason to pile up. But I think that there was some level of frustration in this game. That Lions players were just like, what is going on, man? Like, it just looked like the Cardinals were intentionally trying to hurt the Lions, allegedly, right? That is my opinion. And I know that it's shared by others, that this game just seemed to be a little different than what you're normally used to watching. It seemed intentional at times. The way that Cardinals players were kind of finishing forward, which is not a bad thing, but when you're throwing your head around, which I can't do right now because I'm supposed to have a neck brace on, but when they're throwing their head around like at the knees or at ankles or at shins, as opposed to just kind of tucking and going down, it looked like they were using their helmet as a weapon at times. And Kyler Murray was definitely one of those players that was involved in some of that action. So you guys tell me, why are the Lions in the crosshairs of the NFL right now? Whether it's the refs, or it's after the fact and there's these fines that are coming out. It seems like Carlton Davis is now on the list to get penalized, and Terrion Arnold has been on the list since day one, snap one. He's been getting penalties left and right. So I'm not understanding it, but let's just hope here in week 6 against the Dallas Cowboys, we don't see more of this, because it could be a very long afternoon. That's it for this video. I appreciate you guys joining me. Please take a moment and hit that like button. Subscribe to the channel. We are only a few subscribers away from giving away yet again another autographed mini helmet by Penei Sewell or Chris Spielman. You could be our next winner. We would love for you to join the Rockhound Detroit Lions membership. Take a look at it. We have 3 different levels of membership. Most notably, all of this money that we bring in for all the memberships and all the donations that we receive goes towards the Rockhound Cancer Foundation. Be part of a channel of change, not just a channel of narratives, right? We're not just a channel of putting clickbait out there. We are a channel of change. And that's what this is all about. This channel shares good quality, wholesome content about the Detroit Lions and the NFL, but we also want to change the narrative and the scope on cancer survivors and warriors, and be that voice of change and help them help others. That's what we're all about here. Help us help others. So we're going to brew one cup of hope at a time with your help. And we sincerely appreciate it. Go Lions, go One Pride. We'll see you guys all in the next one. Take care. Bye-bye.